How would you like to have a brand new challenge in your next FIFA save? Would you like to see a brand new team in the Premier League? Why not do both by promoting one of these 4 championship teams that made it to the playoffs? At least one of these teams will be in the top flight next year, so you can get a head start by moving them on FIFA 23. If you're not sure how to actually move a club for career mode, don't worry, I'll show you how to do that in this video as well. For each team, I'll tell you a little bit about what makes them interesting, I'll give you a challenge to make things even more fun or even more difficult, and get you in the mood to start moving some teams throughout the divisions. If you're a fan of any of the teams I mentioned in today's video, then I'd love to see some comments about why your team is the most interesting, or anything you think I've missed when talking about the club. So let's get started with 3rd place Luton Town. The rise from non-league to potentially the top league is one of the most interesting parts of a Luton Town save. As recently as 2014, Luton Town actually weren't even on FIFA, they were so far down the English leagues. The same year, current Luton Town midfielder Pelly Ruddock Mpanzu joined the Hatters. If you choose Luton for your save, he'll be the first player in history to have gone from non-league to the Premier League with the same club. For the first season, you will have a pretty interesting squad. There's a lot of low knees, a lot of low rated players, and no real specific style of play in the squad tactics. For the next FIFA game, no matter what division Luton Town find themselves in, I'm so certain that the squad will get a bunch of upgrades, but this just makes the challenge of keeping them up and surviving in the Premier League a bit more fun for us on FIFA 23. I think you should look to Scotland, the Championship, and some of the Premier League reserves for players that can strengthen your team. If you want to do our challenge, this won't even be an option though. The Luton Lockdown Challenge is when players aren't allowed to join or leave Luton Town for 2 seasons. The only way you can actually get any new players is via the youth academy. With the quality in Luton's squad, this could be a really tough challenge. You'll have to make the most of players like Adebayo, as he's your only real effective player at Premier League level. One place below Luton is Middlesborough, and along with Sunderland, they're the team that played in the Premier League most recently that I'm including in today's video. Compared to Luton, you have a much stronger squad. An even bigger bonus is the licensed stadium thanks to Borough playing in the Premier League quite recently. You do have a slightly bigger budget, and you'll probably need to spend quite a lot of this trying to keep some of your loaned players, Archer, Muniz and Ramsey, in your squad because they all have potential to be quality Premier League players in the future. For signings, I can really imagine Middlesbrough will look to take the best players from the teams that you've relegated to the Championship. A midfield of Ryan Yates from Nottingham Forest and James Garner from Everton would give you a combination that's both played together, would have some Carrick-like qualities on the ball, and would both improve the midfield that Middlesbrough have. If you're not too sure what tactics Michael Carrick actually uses, then maybe you should do the Borough challenge that I've come up with for this save. The Carrick conversion is where every single season you have to pick one of Michael Carrick's former managers and emulate their style of play. For that entire season, you can only sign players from the club that Carrick was at under that manager. Hopefully that isn't too complicated, but basically, if you choose maybe Alex Ferguson's tactics for a season, you can then only go and sign Man United players for that entire season. While Middlesbrough have been in the Premier League quite recently, a team that hasn't been is Coventry City, and they find themselves in 5th place. They're one of those traditional teams that just feels right being in the top division. And just like Luton, Coventry are another team that had a massive rise recently. Instead of going from non-league, they did go from League 2 in 2018 to the Championship in 2021. Coventry are a big club and my personal favourite choice of the 4 playoff teams. Despite not playing in the top flight for over 20 years, they did actually manage to survive for 34 years in a row before they got relegated in 2001, so there is a lot of Premier League pedigree with Coventry City. If you put them in the Premier League, the squad will need a ton of work, but keeping Hamer, Gyökeres and O'Hare is key to surviving. I could easily see players like Jed Spence, Armando Broja and Elliot Anderson all joining on loan, so look at the sort of fringe players from some of the bigger teams in the league. It does seem like Victor Gyökeres seems to get upgraded nearly every week on FIFA, so you already have one giant 75 rated target man. Coventry do begin with some direct passing as their default tactic, and Gyökeres really is the ideal striker for that kind of play. If you're interested in making your own mark on Coventry City, why not try the Coventry Cantera Challenge? So this is based on the sort of farm clubs that Spain used to have. You'll need to create a generation of talent all from the Midlands by signing players from other clubs in the region. This includes both the East and the West Midlands and England for your youth academy. So in the West Midlands, you have the likes of Aston Villa, West Bromwich Albion, Wolverhampton Wanderers. In the East Midlands, you've got Derby, Leicester, Forest, Mansfield. There's so many choices, and I think this could be a really cool save to try and make sort of a Midlands FC with Coventry. In the final playoff spot though, we do find Sunderland. I'm sure a lot of you will have watched them in the Premier League, or maybe you watched their Netflix documentary, but after they spent a few years rebuilding in League One, there's a very real chance they'll get back-to-back promotions and be a First Division side next year. At the moment, only 7 teams in the Championship actually have a lower rated squad than Sunderland on FIFA 23. With an average rating of 69, this is a total rebuild save. Amad Diallo might be good enough, but I really struggle to see how anyone else in this team could survive in the Premier League on FIFA. In real life, it's a bit of a different story. I think players like Ballard and Evans probably could, but the ratings in-game are absolutely terrible. Of course, the Stadium Light is also fully licensed in-game, so that is another reason to pick Sunderland over the likes of Coventry or Luton. So with a full team to rebuild, you'll also need quite a big budget, right? Well, thanks to their recent financial issues, which is the reason they even ended up in League One in the first place, Sunderland also start out with the smallest budget of any of these playoff teams. The biggest positive about Sunderland though is that the team is super young, and if you can survive for a season with some of these players, a lot of them will be growing by 4 to 6 overall every single year. So this means by season 3, you can have a top half team with players rated 78, 80, 81 without even buying a single player. This sets up the squad perfectly for loans, old free transfers, and maybe a couple of key signings in crucial positions. Unfortunately, Sunderland's 15-year-old wonder kid Chris Rigg isn't actually in FIFA just yet, but if you keep funding the famous Sunderland Academy, you can survive for absolutely ages thanks to the amount of top talent the Sunderland seem to produce. But thanks to their tiny budget, I've actually got a really tough challenge for you if you do want to spice a Sunderland save up. It's called the Sunderland Usurpers, and you'll have 2 seasons to finish above Newcastle United. After that, you have to spend less money than them every single season, but also finish above them every single season. This means you'll need to invest in the right player every time. Do you go for instant talent, or do you go for potential and try and develop them so that eventually they become a better player than the instant talent would? You'll need to keep developing your young players from your academy, and you'll probably need to keep playing the Sunderland way with a lot of the players that you actually start out your save with. You have a really good core of potential in your squad already. You've got Anthony Patterson in goal, Dan Ballard in centre back, you've got Dan Neil in midfield, and you've got Jack Clark on the wings. Out of all the teams in the playoffs, Sunderland have by far the most potential, but I still would probably recommend going for Coventry just because I feel like they've got a little bit more history, and it just feels right doing a Coventry save with their unique sky blue kit in the Premier League. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Like I said at the start, if you're a fan or you know anything about any of these teams, please leave it in the comments below because everyone loves to read that kind of thing. Check out the playlist and the video on screen right now, and thank you so much for watching. Cheers and goodbye.